Welcome back, you guys. This is the Art School graduate. Today we have, let's see, a Long Island based lettering master. I'm going to give her that. You guys know, you can see behind her. If you're watching, you can see everything behind her. So she is a lettering master, founder of AGF Design Studio, and she's here to tell her journey into this freelancing and creative field that she is in. And that guest with me today is Alanna Flowers. Alanna, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Justin. Thanks for having me. I'm super hype.
Uh, Man, I'm hyped. We were just talking before we started recording about how I'm a Procreate guy. And then she just crushed me by saying, I'm not that anymore. So it's just,
Yeah.
it's going to be an interesting conversation because it's just, she is super talented, everyone. If you can, at the end, of course, I'm going to share your stuff and you can share it with my audience, and people are going to see why I'm hyping you up, because it's like legit good stuff here.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
No problem. So let's just jump right into it. So what inspired you to just go full-time freelancer? Because we know what freelance work looks like, because we all know that is a very unfriendly place to be.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to take that incredible journey?
Well, that's a great question. That's a big question. Um, I would say, well, I think like maybe a lot of people might
Mhm,
share a similar spark moment of, height of the pandemic. We're all just trying to get through it. And at the time, I was an in-house graphic designer, and I had been doing that for like 4 years.
mhm,
And I think that the change in the world on such a large scale just really made me think about things more and just be a little bit more introspective. Since
mhm,
the world had slowed down so much, I think I started asking myself some big questions. And I think one of those was something along the lines of what does betting on yourself look like?
mhm,
And if you could do absolutely anything, what would that thing be?
mhm.
And the answer had been lettering. And if I could be paid to do lettering, that would be like my favorite thing in the world. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um, at the tail end of 2020, I had signed up for this freelance course with a fellow lettering artist, Martina Floor, who was like one of my biggest inspirations. And I was just like, wow, this really feels like divine timing, if I had to say it. So I was just like, all right, I guess I'm going to go for it. And yeah, I just sort of ramped up my business in, the last few months of that year and launched in 2021. And yeah.
So just curious, how has it been since then? Since we're now out of the pandemic
Uh-huh.
and more people are, not working from homes, how are things shifted for you?
And I would say, I think it's sort of like year to year.
Mhm,
So if I think about it, it's been I guess 4.5-ish years now.
mhm,
So that first year was just super like hit the ground running, extremely
mhm.
scrappy. Just sort of putting myself out there and just like, I'll just throw whatever at the wall and see what. And then after that, I had some experience and some things to look back on, like, okay, I see that that didn't work. So I can sort of
Mm,
adjust my strategy. So
okay.
it has gotten progressively less frantic, maybe, in
Yeah.
terms of like, I don't know what I'm doing at all. So I definitely feel much more secure now, which is really
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm still like met with challenges.
Mhm,
There's still things that I'm learning. I definitely don't have all the answers, but I'm happy to say that I have learned a lot since
mhm.
I started a few years ago. So
Okay, that's good to hear. I always love to hear, you know, I'm I'm here now. Like
yeah.
instead of being like, oh, I gave up. I love the ones that are just keep pushing and keep going. So you're based now in Long Island. You were in Brooklyn by way of White Plains, New York.
Mhm.
So how did that, upbringing in White Plains, New York influence your creativity? And then how's your creativity shifted through each borough you're kind of moving through?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. Um, I would say when I was growing up, I was
Mhm,
definitely always interested and gravitated towards like arts and craft time in
mhm.
school. Like I was definitely the kid who could never have enough of the crayons and the crayons,
Yeah.
the crafting of it all. Like, yeah, shout out to
Yeah.
crayons. That's a throwback.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just always super gravitated to anything artistic.
Mhm.
I was super into like the performing arts growing up. So I was a bit of a theater kid at one point
Mhm.
in like middle school. So I think there's just always been creativity sort of in my life in some form or fashion. And then I think in like high school was when I figured I'm like, oh, there's like a profession where you can be creative.
Yeah.
Um, so that's sort of where I took the interest in graphic design when
Mm.
my art teacher had told me about it. So
Oh, wow. So, were there any big, like, creative shifts or creative visions that happened during this time of, like, White Plains to Brooklyn,
mm,
now to Long Island? Because I know each place has a visual
mhm.
representation along with, like, a cultural representation. So, did you ever find yourself just, like, going out for a coffee and looking at something and finding inspiration in each one of these places, and you managed to keep part of that with you?
That's a good question. I think when I was growing up in White Plains, it was less maybe sort of soaking in the creativity of the
Mhm.
space because it's just like once I haven't moved around much more before my adult life. So I
Yeah.
just grown up in one place. So I think you sort of get stuck in the day to day and just sort of
Yeah.
things become what you've always seen.
Mhm.
I think the shift really happened when I moved to Brooklyn. So I had gotten my first, big kid job out of, school after I graduated college, and
Mhm.
I think being immersed in Brooklyn was a really huge shift for me artistically and creatively because I don't know, it just felt you could just feel
Yeah.
everything everywhere, and, I feel like I was already following a lot of artists on Instagram who were
Mhm.
Brooklyn-based and all this stuff, so it was a lot easier to connect and meet up with them,
Mhm.
for coffee or whatever, and then yeah, and then now I'm in Long Island, and I
Mhm.
feel like I sort of feel um, a little disconnect a bit because it's more suburban here. So it's
Mhm.
not like I'm just walking down the street and like going to a cafe like I would
Right.
be if I were in Brooklyn. But there's still a lot of creativity. I'm seeing, I see a lot of cool murals around in storefronts. There's a lot of creativity that I'm like noticing now that this is like a newer space for me that I haven't really explored before. So, yeah.
Hmm, that's interesting. So let's touch base on your creative process. First things first, what drew you to the lettering medium? Like, what about it was just like, yeah, I'm digging my heels in here, and I'm gonna be here for a while.
Oh, wow. Um, I think what really drew me in was I just had a moment in, my typography class. I think I
Mhm.
was in my junior year of college at the time,
Mhm.
and our teacher had just introduced us to the work of, Jessica Hish, and
Mhm.
she's, like, a very prolific and well-known, lettering artist and type
Mhm.
designer, and she was just doing this personal project that was getting a lot of traction at the time
Mhm.
on, the early social media like Tumblr and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But she was also getting some press pickups about it too, I think. And just the way that she was transforming letters, I'm
Yeah.
just like, you can do that with that. Like, it's not just the way you type it out, and that's just, the way it
That's
is.
it.
Like,
Yeah.
you can remix it. Like, it just felt like an infinite
Mhm.
possibility generator when you
Yeah.
just like twist it and turn it and make it whatever. So I was extremely drawn to that immediately. I think just sort of the freedom I think that it
Mhm.
unlocked because I think in my design student mind I was really maybe strict with like these are the rules and this is the
Yeah.
all of these things of I'm still learning so I don't want to break the rules yet or whatever. But I
Yeah.
think I found a freedom in the lettering medium and I couldn't stop once I found out about it.
I feel like the lettering medium is the only place where it's like the rules kind of don't matter because it's like you go through all the design courses, the intro, the history, the beginning, the grids, the rulers, the guides, and then you get here and they're kind of like, do you want it to be uppercase or lowercase?
Yeah.
It's like, do you want it to be Sanskrit or script? It's like, what? Like, it's like, where do all these rules go that you guys drilled into our heads?
Yeah.
So can you walk us through like your creative process? Like, how do you approach a new lettering piece, start to finish?
Ooh, that's a deep question. I think it really depends on like what am I working on now? Like I'm doing a lot of personal projects. So I think
Mhm.
I'm having like a lot of fun at the
Mhm.
moment and just sort of getting back into play. So I
Yeah.
think my creative process right now is I'm I'm actually shifting, I think, back to earlier times in my career where I was doing more analog to start. I
Mhm.
think at some point I had gotten too into optimization of my process. Like it's going to be on my iPad to start and it's going to go straight onto my computer. So everything is like super streamlined in that way. But I think I've been taking my time with my sketchbook to
Mhm.
like sketch out the idea, like what is the concept that you're trying to work with, and maybe just like writing some like keywords maybe in terms of like what kind of feel I want it to
Yes.
evoke, or maybe like people who do like branding projects or whatever, they'll be like, what's
Yeah.
the feeling of your brand? Is it energetic? Is it soft? Is it these kinds of things? I think I'm sort of like going sort of in that direction,
Mhm.
especially with like self-guided projects,
Yeah.
just to sort of give me some sort of foundation and grounding of like where I want to take things.
Mhm.
And then I just make some really scrappy, ugly sketches just to get them out because
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like it's not going to look good in the beginning. It's just
Yeah.
not. So I'm just scribbling stuff and it be incoherent. I might have to dog ear something and put a post-it note and be like, okay, I'm coming back to this later. But
Mhm.
embracing the scrappiness of it. I did that long ago because I'm
Mhm.
like, it's just not going to be good in the beginning.
Right.
And then from like a few scrappy ideas, checking one off, be like, okay, maybe one or two, and being
Yeah.
like, these are the strongest ones that I think have legs that can go forward into. Then I pick up my iPad probably and, start drawing on my iPad and do a more
Mm.
refined sketch from there. Um, so yeah, and then just working through the rest of it, like, figuring out colors, because by that time I have, most of the details worked out, like, the style or what have you, and then playing with
Okay.
effects.
Okay. So let's talk about the tools of the trade. What are you
Mm.
using now to create?
So my go-to is definitely my iPad and Adobe Fresco.
Mhm.
Those are like daily for me.
Yeah.
I'm in that program daily. And then in addition to that, I'll also sometimes open up Photoshop if there's like a certain tool or effect that I can't access in Fresco, maybe, since those two are pretty compatible. And then I'm also vectorizing my work a lot. So
Mhm.
sometimes I will decide that I want to vector my work instead. So for that, I'll go into Adobe Illustrator.
Mm, nice. So the $1,000,000 question. Fresco versus Procreate. What happened? Why such a shift?
That's so funny. You know, honestly, it was born out of just a curiosity
Mm.
because Procreate has had such a nice solid foundation, I
Yeah.
think, especially in terms of iPad drawing, like completely revolutionary
Mhm.
for like such powerful machines that they have now. And so I think they sort of had a foothold for a while. So, even though Adobe is sort of solidified in terms of like industry standard and like
Mhm.
desktop programs, them introducing themselves onto the iPad was kind of new. So I was interested in just like figuring out like what have they been working on kind of thing,
Mm.
and why aren't more people using it.
Mhm.
So at the time there were some like key features I think sort of lacking like in the earlier days, but
Yeah.
I think now it's just as good as Procreate, if not like
Mm.
better. So it started with
Man.
curiosity, and then I just ended up never stopping really.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm an Adobe guy. Love it to death. Haven't jumped in Fresco yet. It's just to me, Procreate just seems like so easy. Like
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
me. But I just because when I first like was drawn to it and we were talking before we were recording, it was like I was making coloring books and I was like, dude, this is so easy. I can just draw to scale what I want. And I have never given Fresco a chance. I'm so
Okay.
sorry.
No, it's totally fine because I was right there with you for a long time. Like, it changed everything for me when I was like, "Well, I don't have to use paper anymore." So many sheets of paper. And now I'm just like, everything is
Yep.
just gonna be contained into one place and no mess. This is amazing, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
So what do you see the benefits in Fresco? What do you see for it?
Well, one, especially if you're already using Adobe programs, like
Mhm.
I've been using like the all apps plan because it's just like I've got my hands in so many different programs, it just makes more sense. You already have access to Fresco. So like there's
Mhm.
no like downside, there's no like additional cost or whatever. Also it's technically free even if you don't have an Adobe subscription already. So I thought that was appealing. Yeah.
Mm.
And then it's like super versatile. Like you
Mhm.
don't just draw, much like Procreate, you can animate as well.
Yeah.
And I think that they have a lot of accessible features
Mm.
that I thought were really good, especially for animation. So I'm like, I don't know. I like what they were
Mhm.
doing. So
Okay. Okay, I might have to just go for it. I might just have to try. Yeah. But I want to say something. Everybody, if you are an artist or a designer, the key thing she said, if you guys are paying attention, is she has a notebook that she sketches in. You don't know how many I've been teaching design now going on 15 years. Kids are like, "Why do I need a sketchbook?" I'm like, "You never go straight to the computer ever."
oh no.
Yes. You will sit there at that computer and think it's
Hmm.
a magical genie. You start rubbing the keyboard and screen like, "Hey, you guys, give me something." It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, no.
So all new designers, get you a sketchbook. Okay, get you a
It's true.
sketchbook. I have at least maybe 8, 9, 10 of them. So
Uh-huh.
I understand that.
That's awesome.
Okay. Yeah. So you've talked about interconnectivity and uniqueness in your work. So
Mm.
how do you bring these concepts into a broader design work?
I think I think a lot of my work has sort of maybe naturally touched upon those topics just because as a lettering artist, I'm usually like illustrating a quote or something that
Mhm,
seems to have some kind of broad messaging that
mhm,
speaks to a lot of people. And then I get to further deepen the meaning by illustrating it in a particular
mm,
way.
mhm,
So I think that sort of I don't know, I feel like it sort of shows some sort of connection
mhm,
amongst whoever is viewing it or, I share it on social media or whatever, and it's being viewed by however many people, so I think there's just something naturally, natural like a natural connection that forms,
mm.
I think, with lettering somehow.
So it's interesting you just said that because that was my next question going to be how, like, your approach to choosing like these socially charged quotes. Like, how do you approach this? Like, is it you're sitting there thinking of something, or is it more of you're influenced by what's going on in the world or anything like that?
I've definitely drawn inspiration from both, like, whatever's going on currently,
Mhm,
definitely, and also just from whatever I'm feeling at the
mhm,
time. Sometimes it can sort of, I think for a lot of people, their art can at times be therapeutic for them. So sometimes I just feel like I need to get something out.
mhm,
And I think that throughout history, we've seen that a lot,
yes.
So I think we're constantly seeing, people expressing themselves
Mhm.
and, these are really trying times, it just is what it is.
Absolutely
So
it
it's just
is.
like, it sort of informs the art
Mhm.
because you can't really pull away from it so easily because it's just in your face all the time.
Right. So how do you wrap your mindset around like style and responsibility? Because it's almost like you have a voice within the work, but you also have a responsibility to like give it its just due. So
Mhm.
what's your mindset and around that?
I think especially if it's like a quote from like a historical figure or someone who is like sort of larger than life. Like, I've done lettering quotes from Maya Angelou and, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Like, there's history already, tied to these people. So you can use that as, historical reference or, as a part of like the research of like, what other things have they written or said or, how else have other creatives, interpreted these
Mm,
words.
yes.
Just sort of thinking about those kinds of things. I think there's a lot that can be drawn from history. So I try not to design in a vacuum and like just be like whatever I'm going to put out is going to
Yeah.
be exactly
Yeah.
correct and,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
perfect thing because whatever. I never like to assume that. And also, I think there's something that you come to expect,
Mhm,
sort of maybe you wouldn't put, something that's really emotionally charged in like Comic Sans or
mhm,
something, or like something sort of more playful and rounded, Like I feel like we have certain associations with certain letter forms and styles that we've just sort of come to know as like this makes sense to my eye, and seeing it another way
mhm,
doesn't make as much sense visually.
mhm.
Which also might be part of the intent, but
Yeah.
that's a whole other thing. But, just sort of thinking about those things,
Mm,
and thinking about like the audience as well, I think sort of informs
mm.
that.
That's good. So let's talk about the blending of illustration versus type. How
Mhm.
do you feel about those 2? Because I feel like one is very much a lot more freer in control versus type where it's like you kinda have a few boundaries that you have to work within. So, how do you blend your creative process for those 2 different practices?
Yeah, it's so funny. I used to think of type and lettering like as really polar opposite ideas. I used to think of lettering like it was jazz music, kind of like they
Yeah.
were like, all over the place and like kind of like energetic or whatever. And I didn't really think of type in the same way. I did think of it sort of in the systematic, like that, you really have to follow the rules, like all of
Mm,
your every kern has to be perfect. Um, but now I sort of think I see a lot of freedom and play in type design as well.
mm,
And also, type designers have a lot of lettering skill
mhm.
set as well. I mean, they're still drawing the letter forms. It's just
Right.
the fact that they're refining them into a system that can then be used,
Mhm.
in a variety of ways. So I think the origins are sort of similar, even if the application in the end is different. So I might only be hand lettering a quote that, I don't touch every single letter of the alphabet
Mhm.
necessarily, but maybe I could go back and trace those letter forms and put them into a workable typeface if I did sort of figure out a system, so to speak,
Mhm.
of creating a typeface later on. So I think they're more related than we think, maybe.
So when you're in your creative process or you get approached by like a client, do you kind of lay it out for them or do you kind of allow them to just share and how does that process work? Like if a client's coming to you and they're like, I love your typography, your typefaces, but would you possibly be interested in character design? Is that something where you're kind of like, eh, or do you just say, hey, I can do anything?
It'd be cool to be able to be like, "I can do absolutely anything." But the cool thing is that, I'm, I guess, at a point and even from the very beginning, because I
Mhm.
was so intentional with, like, I want to be a lettering artist, that's the way I'm going to present myself.
Yeah.
There really isn't ever any, like, off-target requests that come my way. Everyone is usually coming to me for some sort of lettering,
Gotcha.
project. So it's nice because usually they have already one, they know what lettering is. So like that's already a big
Right.
a big
Right.
check mark. So then they've usually worked with other lettering artists in the past. So we have
Yeah.
a shared lexicon, so to speak, so we can kind of, streamline the process creatively.
Okay, good. Because I had to ask that because it's even like sometimes being a graphic designer, they hear graphic
Mhm.
designer and they're like, "Oh, I need you to do me a branding project." Well, what? Oh,
That's a whole other story.
you're like, "Hold on, I'm a graphic designer that does logos." Like, it's like,
Yeah.
I'm a graphic designer that does webs like, people sometimes hear graphic designer and think or designer in general, they
Right.
think you can do everything. So
No, it's true.
that's why I was like, do you ever get the ones who see, like, designer, they just see you and they see, "Oh, she's a designer. Hey, can you do this?" type thing. So
Uh-huh.
that's why I was curious to see how those conversations go, but you're right. If they're coming to you, it's very specific what they're looking for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, so let's talk about like design culture.
Mhm.
You have mentioned that diversity doesn't always have to be about dismantling systems, but it could
Mhm.
start small. How do you integrate that thinking into your practice?
Well, I guess I integrate it by just sort of thinking not disqualifying my voice just because I'm one person, I guess. Because it's like, well, I guess it'd be better if I was a part of some coalition or cohort of people,
Mhm.
but just because I am an individual doesn't mean that I don't have something to share that's worth it, or that is, worth sharing with others. So I would really hate to think that anyone would think that they were too small or too whatever, to have some sort of impact, especially in places where they see injustice or things that they don't agree with. Just
Mhm.
even if it's just like simple, small things, so to speak, like it
Yeah.
matters to you, it matters.
Right. Right. Because I was just curious because it's like you do use historical figures, you do, and so I was just like, I was wondering how that practice and thinking works within like your work because like Martin Luther King Jr., you already knew what he was about, like so you're coming into like very heavy sometimes, well, most of the time content. So
Mhm.
that's why I was just curious to know like how do you keep those things flowing?
Yeah, I think it's like you just feel the connection sometimes too. It's like I'm not just picking them randomly. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know. My parents like grew up like, Black History Month was,
It
it was
yeah.
it was it, and they
Yeah.
made sure that we did like extra learning,
Yeah.
like outside of the classroom, like going to
100%.
places on the weekends and like learning more and like all this stuff. So like I think that's just been sort of deeply integrated into my life, even from like young,
Mhm.
maybe more than I realize. And now it's sort of bubbling to the surface. Now that I like work in this very visual
Mhm.
medium. So
Mhm.
it's sort of interesting, those maybe early influences seeping through.
So do you think the design world is evolving when it comes to type and visual communication with cultural representation in that? Do you think it's evolving?
I think so. I think there are definitely like type foundries that I've seen, people who are really approaching type from the one it's not just visual, it's not just something to use as a system. It's
Mhm.
part of language preservation, like making sure that, languages are represented,
Mhm.
outside of the Latin alphabet, just like
Yeah.
how many different characters are used by people all around the world. Like, I
Yeah.
think there are like different interesting cultural approaches that I've seen in
Mhm.
type design and like lettering
Yeah.
that maybe I wouldn't have been exposed to if I hadn't gotten so entrenched into lettering and stuff.
Mhm.
So there's definitely a lot of people doing a lot of interesting things. And yeah, it's really cool. I've been a judge too on a lot of different type the type directors club, competitions
Wow.
and stuff. So like
Yeah.
these are global competitions. So I get to see work from
Everything.
everywhere. So it's like, wow, people are, they're creating such amazing stuff and all these different stories. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So let's touch on that for a minute. How is it seeing like this overwhelming collection of type?
Yeah.
Like for me, I tell my students, I'm like, hey, check out the font, and they get overwhelmed by that. And I'm like, and then I bring in like when we talk about typography, I bring in books. They're like, books? Like, this is how we had to learn before Chat GPT, all right? Like,
Yeah.
listen to me. So how is that? What is it that you, I don't know, look for or your process in judging? Like, what will get the gold ribbon from Alana?
Well, I definitely, whatever guidelines they set for us, I try
Mhm.
to sort of take, of course, like follow those. I
Yeah.
can't particularly remember, but there's always like some sort of set guidelines. But beyond that, it's just like everyone, they submit usually just like a small brief of like,
Mhm.
what am I looking at? Just like give me some context kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
And then from there, it's just like, presentation,
Mhm.
what is the, level of skill being demonstrated here? What
Mhm.
is this person's unique perspective?
Mhm.
And I've seen type in so many different ways. It's so cool. People putting it on clothing and, huge murals and these interesting, like beyond paint, like it's three-dimensional and it's all this stuff.
Wow.
It's like people are really going crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't think that you could do that with that, but that's awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I think if whenever I can be surprised, I'm like, "That's cool."
Yeah.
That usually,
Yeah.
does it
Yeah.
for me.
So I would say, let me just ask you this. What's the most unique styling of type you've seen in this competition? One that just kind of you looked at and you just kept looking at like, oh, you did that, huh? You
Uh-huh.
you did not mess or you did not come to play. You showed up and showed out. Is there
Yeah.
one in particular that you can think about that just stood out? Like what it looked like, styling, any of that?
You know, I'm thinking about an artist. His name is, I think he goes by Don Carlos is his Instagram name.
Mhm.
Um, so he had created some pieces of lettering, and they were just in these very interesting, like amorphous, like rounded shapes. And he was shading them and rendering them in a way that made them look like sculptures. And I was just like, this is really like catching me because not just
Yeah.
because of the presentation, but I think he had gone into something along the lines of this was born out of like, experimentation and curiosity
Yeah.
and like not being like super boxed in and strict with like, oh, it has to look a certain way.
Mhm.
And I think he achieved some really spectacular results. It might have been part of a 36 days of type project, but
Mhm.
I might be wrong. I don't know how many letters he ended up getting through, but
Mhm.
I think he did actually end up creating those in like a few of those letter forms into sculptures in
Oh,
the
wow.
end. So that was pretty cool that he like spray painted and stuff. So
Oh, wow. So
yeah.
have you tried any other format outside of the digital, like murals or, spray painting or stenciling or anything like that?
Yeah. So before I was even a digital artist or anything, I was really into brush lettering and calligraphy.
Mm.
So I would just that I would do that. That was all I did when I first, got into lettering, so I always had a small sketchbook in my bag wherever I went. I always had my pens, and I don't know how many, hundreds of dollars I gave to all those, brush pen companies, but shout out to you guys because you held it down, and I would just always have those on me because I was just always doodling with
Mhm.
something. So heavy into that and still do that from time to time.
Mhm.
I had the opportunity to paint a mural
Oh, cool.
um, um, in uh, in New York City at the Seaport with a nonprofit called You Are Not Alone Murals. That was really excellent, um, and that was a really like huge experience because that was like my first like big public mural. Before
Yeah.
that, I had just painted in my old apartment bedroom, so
Mhm.
I had done a mural in there, but those were pretty cool.
So tell us about that. That seems
Mhm.
very interesting. What is the company, and if you can describe the mural for us?
Yeah, so You're Not Alone Murals is a nonprofit. Shout out to Annika and Sam. They're the co-founders, and yeah, they every year they have an open call for artists to participate. They have a Seaport Mural Fest, they call it.
Mhm.
So down at Pier 17 in Lower Manhattan, they have these giant walls. I think it was 8 feet by I don't remember, 16 feet, maybe something like that, but they were
Wow.
big. Um, yeah, I was selected a couple years ago. So it was me and I don't remember how many other artists, but it was maybe like 8 or 10 of us who were out
Uh-huh.
there for a few days. And the whole message is you are not alone. So this is to raise awareness for mental health,
Mhm.
people who might be going through things,
Mhm.
struggling with their mental health. It raises awareness for that, raises money for them to, support, other nonprofits with similar messaging and missions. And
Mhm.
yeah, it was really, really cool.
So what was your message? What did you have to write those letters in your
Mhm.
style, or was it like you came up with something super organic?
So the cool thing is that everyone uses You Are Not Alone.
Okay.
So you could do it in whatever style you want.
Mhm.
You could add illustrations to it. You could do them in different languages.
Mhm.
So that year we had it in a few different languages. So it's really cool. And then it's just like a call to action that's just like global. So people, all over will put on a mural like You Are Not Alone or
Oh, that's
draw it on their sketchbook or whatever and tag them to just sort of spread that message. So
oh, that's amazing, dude. I know you're probably like, "Oh, I'm so geeked for that."
I mean, it was great. It
Yeah.
was a very great experience. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. So let's talk about your design studio. Um, AGF Design Studio.
Yeah.
What is the mission behind it?
Oh, well, I'm really just trying to use my lettering and my design skills to help
Mhm.
people tell a story.
Mhm.
So, what are you trying to do? Because
Right.
lettering is a very, like we said, it can be very transformative.
Mhm.
Depending on the way that you illustrate your letter forms, you could really, I feel like you could amplify a message that much more. So in my hands, that's what I try to do
Mhm.
with whatever project I'm given. So sometimes
Mhm.
it's, silly, sometimes it's more serious, but
Mhm.
I enjoy it.
Okay, good, good. Let's talk about these clients you get. How did these early opportunities of working with like Adobe, American Greetings, like how did you land such phenomenal companies?
Oh yeah. Definitely um preparation meets opportunity fully,
Mhm.
like, and just, getting lucky in that way.
Mhm.
Because I had to, set myself up, put my portfolio together and all this stuff. But, sometimes it's just being in the right place at the right time. I definitely commented on someone who worked at American Greetings, like, post on Instagram. She's like, "Hey, I got a new job." And I was just like, "Congratulations." And then like 2 days later, they were my first client. So like,
What?
yeah, I know, I
No
know.
way.
Yeah, and I was just
That's
I
amazing.
didn't expect anything to come of it. I was just like,
Wow.
fellow Black woman, like, in a creative space, like, working at
Yeah.
American Greetings, like, I gotta hype that up. Congratulations, like, that's awesome. So, it was cool, and I ended up doing, some Black History Month quotes for them that year.
That's no
Yeah.
man. I gotta start leaving comments. Hey, you guys. Hey, hi. How you
I'm
guys
telling
doing?
you.
Right.
It's crazy, like, I think I'm becoming more and more aware of just like, oh, art directors are on Instagram, like, they
Mhm.
follow you, you just don't know, like, that
Ooh,
they're art directors maybe, but,
right.
like, they're there, and they're
Mhm.
watching what you're doing.
Just in case they need somebody for something, you're like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I know this person."
Yeah.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, and then I think, working with Adobe was probably just more serendipity, just, especially because I was talking about fresco a lot too. I
Yeah.
think that might have put me sort of more on their radar just because I knew that not a lot of people were using it as much as
Uh-huh.
Procreate. So I was just like, I can differentiate myself and stand out
Mm.
by amplifying this product that I actually enjoy using, by the way. So it's like,
Mhm.
but not just like, it doesn't help to be disingenuous. But it's like
Right.
if it actually works out and it's like, oh, I actually enjoy using this product, they're like, "Hey, let's commission you since
Yeah.
you already use our product. Why don't you create some art and we'll pay you to do that?" So it's like, "Cool."
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I
So
can't wait. I can't wait for it to you know how when you open Adobe and they always have those little pictures, I'll be looking out for yours one day.
oh, I'll
You
be
know,
looking
the
out for mines.
yeah, just we just keep submitting stuff like, "Hey guys, don't forget about me. Can I put this here?"
Yeah, that's so cool. I always get so hype. I always look for the person's name,
Yes,
artwork
yes,
by. I'm
yes.
like,
I
I
do the
zeroed
same
in
thing.
because I'm like, that's such a huge deal. Like, I think that's so cool.
Yeah, that is. So let's talk about some of these lessons you've learned being
Mm.
a freelancer. What have been some of the biggest lessons you've learned
Oh,
in this journey?
oh gosh, what haven't I learned? That definitely you might just be holding yourself back.
Mhm.
Um, because a lot of it is just putting yourself out there, right? Like I'm cold emailing art directors like every day. Like
Hey,
it's just it comes with the territory. It's just like what do people say? Like closed mouths don't get fed
don't get
kind of
fed.
thing.
Yep.
So it's just like I have to show that I am here. I have to have people acknowledge my presence. So it's just like you can't be afraid and hold yourself back from hitting send because
Yeah,
on the other side of that could
you
be
don't
a
know.
really huge opportunity.
Yeah.
So that has definitely been a huge one because I think a lot of people who ask me about freelance are just like, how are you not afraid to like, reach out to people or like, how are you not afraid to do X, Y, and Z?
Mhm.
And it's not that I'm not afraid. It's just that I'm less afraid than I am like interested in getting like paid
Mm.
so that I can continue to pay my rent. Like.
Right.
It's like after a while, it's just like the fear just can't outweigh like
Right.
it's gotta work at certain
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. No, that's
So,
true.
yeah, that's definitely been a big one. And then maybe, um, it's okay to, like, go through, evolutions throughout
Mhm.
your career, like, it's
Yeah.
never gonna be, like, a super straight line.
Mhm.
Exploring different lettering styles, it's like, "Oh my gosh, I haven't done this before, like, can I do this? I don't know."
Mhm.
But it's just like, well,
That
this try. You don't know
Yeah.
what will happen. So yeah, I don't know, embracing curiosity too, not being super strict about like maybe how you define yourself or see yourself.
That's good. I always tell people don't take yourself too serious, especially especially in art and design. I feel like you gotta have that room to for play. You gotta
Mm,
have that room to play. And play could be making something first time drawing it, or play
mhm.
can be don't like this one. Ooh, but I did like what I did here, and carrying that over to the next one, to the next one.
Yeah.
So it's almost like giving yourself a little bit of grace to make mistakes.
I 100% agree with that. I think we should all definitely be embracing play more. That's what
Yeah.
I'm trying to do with my personal projects. I still have like my undercover mission of like I'm putting out these personal projects so that people could hire me for projects that look like
Yeah.
this, but I'm also doing it because I genuinely enjoy it. So,
Yeah. That's good. So how do you decide which projects to say yes to and which ones to say no?
ooh, that's a good question. I think I need to sometimes do research. Sometimes it's like, okay, one, if it's like a company that maybe I'm not familiar with, I'll just be
Mhm.
like, let me check out your website. Especially because sometimes people are scammers. Let's just let's just say people are
100%.
scammers sometimes.
100%.
So I'm just like, what is the likelihood that you are X person from X place?
Right.
So just doing a little bit of do your own little
Right.
sleuthing or whatever.
Right.
And then also I think my ability to say yes or no depends on like a number of factors, like the scope, like, do you have a fleshed out brief or are you
Yeah.
just like asking me something like kind of vague? Because I can't say yes to something if it's like really vague. So I'll ask leading questions like,
Mhm.
okay, this is the kind of information that I'm looking for. If you're like looking to me for,
Right.
a lettering project, what's the
Mhm.
scope like, with my turnaround time looking like,
Yeah.
there's so many factors. So
Right.
the more information, the better chances I have of being able to say yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. That's very good to know because some people are afraid to like ask too many questions because they feel like it might turn off the client or people like that.
Oh, really?
I've heard people
Oh.
mention that where it's like so many questions can make them kind of like nervous. And I'm like, no, you need to know. So you're not just sitting there, uh, is it green or blue?
Mhm.
You don't want to sit there and guess,
No,
then you
yeah.
produce the wrong thing. And then they're going to look at you like, you're supposed to be the expert and you can't even do it right?
Yeah, no, part of being an expert is definitely asking questions because it's
Mhm.
like you said, otherwise you're just shooting in the dark.
Right.
Like, it could be any number of things. Like, I could
Yeah.
literally create anything. So, in a world of anything, let's narrow it down a little bit.
Yeah. 100%. So while researching you and looking you up, I came across that you're one of the few creatives that talk openly about licensing. What drew you to it and how did you get started?
So, I think that licensing came into my consciousness when I was first starting out as a freelancer and I was
Mhm,
exploring different income streams.
mhm,
So I was just trying to figure out how many different ways can I, crack an egg, so to speak, I guess. So licensing came up because I saw two other artists talking about it a lot.
mhm,
Katie and Alanna of Good Type. They're like the licensing experts as far as
mhm,
I'm concerned. Like they talk about licensing a lot. And I took one of their licensing courses because I was just
mhm,
like, I have no idea what's happening.
mm,
So that helped inform me and made me realize, like, oh, I could create a piece of artwork one time, but license it for any number of products or,
yeah,
applications and keep generating income off of something that I, only had to make once. And
yeah.
that's extremely appealing for artists because it's like, it's labor intensive to create
Mhm,
a piece start to finish. And I can't always do everything bespoke, but after a while, you do create a collection of work. You've been
mhm,
doing stuff for a long time. So it's like maybe with a few tweaks of like different quotes, if it's like, for a certain holiday or, might change some colorways to certain
uh-huh.
things. But you can build a portfolio specifically for licensing to different companies for like greeting cards or home
Mm.
decor. Yeah.
So did you find that process, just out of curiosity, did you find it easy or hard? Or was it more like just making sure you have all your ducks in a row?
Um, it was definitely a little hard only because I had to learn like a new set of vocabulary, I
Mhm.
guess, that sort of applied to licensing. So it's like different keyword
Yeah.
terms to look for in contracts and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, this means that they have limited usage. This means that, they have
Mm.
worldwide usage forever, kinds of things. So it's like there's some overlap to
Yeah.
like traditional illustration contracts, but
Mhm.
there were some things that were more specific to licensing that I had to learn. So in
Mhm.
that sense, it was a little challenging because I
Mhm.
had to learn a different, artistic sort of discipline or like
Yeah.
specialty in that way. And then after that, it was also hard just because I was like, okay, maybe I've made things for like Christmas, but
Yeah.
maybe I don't have that much stuff. So it's like, okay, maybe I need to just sort of beef up my portfolio a little bit for certain
Mm.
categories. Um, but yeah, it's just a time investment, really.
Got it. So, what would be your one piece of advice for someone curious about going this route of art licensing?
Um, I would say, um, it's definitely helpful to be following the work of people who are already licensing their artwork because it's a lot easier than Maybe I think it's easier to approach it from a standpoint of I'm creating collection of work
Mhm.
rather than this is just all the artwork I've ever made in a
Mhm.
PDF file. I think if you present it in a certain way to people who usually license artwork and
Mhm.
it's organized by like sections like these are for birthday, this is for Christmas, like
Yeah.
and like sort of like investing maybe in like some nice mock-ups, be like, this is what it could look like on a
Okay.
mug. This is what it could look like on a greeting card. So I think be like exposing yourself to
Mhm.
more artists that might do licensing already would be helpful.
Mm.
Um, and then after that's just like go for it.
Yeah, that's good. So, I would say you're probably one of there's so many people that are creating content right now, but you're so active across like YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. Like, how do you keep your content strategy or content calendar sustainable, girl? Because you are like, I saw your YouTube. I was like, okay, she good. I went on Instagram. I was like, this girl done dropped 4 things, and you dropped the you like. How do you keep your content strategy like sustainable? Do you ever feel like you'll encounter? I know it's probably two part, but do you ever feel you'll encounter like a burnout?
Yeah, it's artists and social media. It's always just like a love hate, maybe
Mm.
sometimes more hate
Yeah.
situation. And honestly, maybe this is bad, but I think is sort of dictated by my energy
Mm.
levels because I think I'll see a lot of artists say, and I feel the same way usually, where it's like my social media output goes up when I don't have like as much client work because I have time,
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I'm updating my portfolio. I'm
Yeah.
posting more projects or like personal projects like from a backlog kind of. So it's like I have
Got it.
things that have been ready to post maybe, but like I just haven't, gotten up and like paid attention so much aside from just
Mhm.
scrolling. So you sort of go from consuming more to uploading a little bit more when, maybe the client
Yeah.
side calms down a little bit. So I think it's
Uh-huh.
just sort of ebbs and flows with the seasons as things
Got you.
change.
Got you.
But there is definite burnout
Mhm.
associated with that because I'm a one woman show. So I'm
Right.
I'm hitting publish every time.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that social media and scheduling are hand in hand because a
Mhm.
lot of these platforms, if you're not using something that's like, I've used platforms like Later and stuff like
Mhm.
that before, that, you could sort of batch everything and then,
Yeah.
it'll schedule and upload stuff for you. And that's fine. But, I sometimes will just, like, open each social media platform, and I'll use their scheduler, like,
Yeah.
whatever's built into their system, and I find that's perfectly fine.
Mm.
Yeah, usually we'll do just, like, a day ahead and just give myself a
Got
little bit
you.
to write a little caption or whatever, but yeah.
Got you. So do you find yourself when it comes time to create, like sitting down and planning it out, like, okay, today I'm going to take this YouTube video. From this YouTube video, I'm going to give myself 4 clips from it and I'm going to
Mhm.
post them throughout the day. And then tomorrow I'm going to try something else. Do you find yourself planning it so much like that? Or is it just like, okay, I like this, I'm going to do this, but I want to post something different for Instagram?
Usually I will try and adjust one piece of content to work on every platform.
Mm,
So it's like I'll just have to make certain tweaks because some platforms have certain limitations. They can't
mhm.
support GIFs, which is like driving me nuts personally because I love GIFs.
Yeah.
Infinite loops, it's beautiful. It's just like,
Yeah.
and then it just takes your GIF and it turns it into a stupid static image, and I'm like, oh, delete. But so I usually will have some sort of like a loose content plan, like
Mhm.
nothing crazy. Usually surrounded around dates that I care about. So maybe it's like certain holidays. Maybe
Yeah.
we just had the WNBA draft. I did some artwork for that,
Mhm.
like a personal project poster that I put up. So I'm like, okay, the draft is on Monday, so that has to go up on Monday. So just like being aware of like dates, and I
Mm,
do much
mhm.
better with like looking at the calendar and like giving myself a pseudo deadline kind of thing,
Right.
because then I can be more accountable. Because if it's like, I'm just going to post about this random thing
Yeah.
and it's like not really attached to something that's like, okay, well, there's only one day for this one thing kind of thing. And it
Right.
doesn't mean to say like if you miss a certain holiday by like a day or two, like that it is
Yeah.
no longer relevant. But
Got you.
it sort of anchors me a little bit in terms of like, okay, well, let's be a little bit accountable and like hit post,
Yeah.
so I'm not ruminating over like, "I could change something maybe," and just like, don't do it.
Right. And that's the $1,000,000 question right there. How do you know when to stop as a designer and a creator? I ask many people this and I get the same thing you said under your breath. Oh God. Everybody, it's a very hard thing for us creatives, but
Mm.
how do you know when to stop?
I go through this all the time,
Mhm,
and I think I definitely went through it, on this past week because I had gone through so many iterations of this poster design that I was doing and,
mhm.
completely self-initiated. So it's like, okay, you're the art director here. So like, what do you want this to look like? And then I just got a little bit too far into like, but what if, but what if, but what if? And then I had to step back and stop myself and be like, hey, chill.
Right.
This is fine the way it is because does it communicate what you're trying to communicate? Is
Mm,
it, of the level of skill that you're
mhm.
trying to display? So it's
Right.
like, if it can
Yeah.
do those two things, it's probably fine. But I really do sometimes have to stop myself and be like, all right, it's done. It's done. It's fine. Hit final V20 and it's fine.
She's like, all the PDFs you see, it's like PDF 37. It's like,
It's
dang.
true.
I believe it. We have all been there where it's like, they're not telling you to make revisions. You're just like, oh, I just saw this. Okay, let me fix that. Ooh, but if I fix that, I got to put it on this too. Okay, let me do that. And it's like, you keep, next thing you know, PDF 37, final,
Hmm.
final, final underscore, final. So all those different saves. So yeah, I know everybody struggles with that.
Yeah.
But just out of curiosity, so do you think sharing your journey online has helped attract new clients or collaborators since you're across so many platforms?
That's a good question. And I think probably yes, only because I think there's a reason why on my contact form that honestly not a lot of people use anymore, but like people will put like, how did you find me? Because it's true. It's like I'm spread out on the internet for a reason
Yeah.
because it's like I don't know what you use, so maybe you'll find me here,
Yeah.
or over here or over here. So some people will say the first time I engaged with your content was through a YouTube video that I saw, and just that's just the algorithm doing its thing.
Mhm.
So I have no control over that. Or people will be like, "Oh, I saw this Instagram post that you did, and that's pretty cool." So I think it's really interesting, and I think it does help to be like sort of around. But
Yeah.
I think when I first started, I had so much curiosity and flexibility just because like I didn't know what I was doing kind of.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
just like, okay, I'll start uploading to YouTube and that'll be a
Yeah.
thing. But it's cool because it's like, well, that's kind of driving people to my newsletter and doing
Mhm.
like everything has a function.
Yeah.
So it's not like super random. It's
Mhm.
definitely has like some strategy behind it. So it's
Mhm.
always interesting seeing how people find me.
That's good. Because I always like with people that have such large followings, I'm like, how do you know, like, what to check, like, where to go and what to see? Because it's
Oh
like when
my
you
gosh.
like, on for you on YouTube, you have hundreds of thousands of views. And then it's like, how do you know what to check from here? And then you go to Instagram. It's like, how do you know how to check your messages? It's almost like you need a what are those called? I was about to say a chauffeur. That
I was
ain't
gonna
it.
say a virtual assistant.
There it is.
Oh,
I don't know why my brain said chauffeur. I'm so sorry.
someone to chauffeur the messages to you.
That there it is.
See,
That
there
part.
it is.
Chauffeur the messages to you. It's like
That's
how do you like I always wonder how people with large followings like manage that.
I mean, it's really I mean, and,
Mhm.
it is what it is. Like, I know it's just like your 5,000 followers on Instagram is like someone's 100,000 followers or whatever from like their
Yeah.
perspective. But I don't know. I just check my messages sometimes, I honestly have to go on the vibes, like, because
Yeah.
looking at social media irritates me sometimes. Like, for long periods of time, like, I started to notice like a mood shift in myself, like this like
Mm,
doom scrolliness of like endless comparison flooding. It's not healthy for me personally. So it's like I can go on for like 5 minutes like on my desktop, like not on my phone,
yeah.
then like check Instagram, like leave some comments on, some posts from my I call them my Insta friends, people who I've engaged with on Instagram primarily and
Uh,
stuff like that, and support their work and like see what people are doing, and then it's head down and app close because it's just too much information, too much consumption was
mm,
just really affecting me in like the worst ways after a while. So I'm just like, I can do it in doses and
mm.
that's fine for me.
That's good because it's just like having all those people and somebody messaging you and you probably don't get through all your emails and you're just like, oh, I just went to the bathroom and now I have 100 more. Great, thanks. It's like you're grateful for it, but at the same time, it could possibly be overwhelming for a one person
Mhm.
show to handle. So I was always curious how like content creators do that, especially art content creators, because it's
Mhm.
like you're not just in the camera, in the camera, editing, scripting. Like you're doing
Mhm.
everything. So it's like, how in the
Yeah.
world do you manage it? But I guess taking that time to like have time for yourself and do it in batches and scheduling is probably
Mhm.
super key.
Yeah, I think so, and I think I feel that most when I think I feel the most, behind on, like, YouTube comments specifically because I do a lot of tutorial-based content. People are asking questions, so it's like I want to answer their question in, like, a relatively, like, shortish time period. 'Cause it's like I get that they're learning and they're beginners, so it's just like I really want to make myself available to them, but
Mhm.
it's just like you have to, at some point,
Mm.
flip it off, but
Yeah. So I'm glad you said that you are on YouTube and you're teaching more of an educational content and teaching these students how to, well, I'll call them your students, how to do what you're doing. And so what do you wish art school would have prepared you better for?
what I'm doing now, honestly, like, being a freelancer,
Mhm.
would have been a really cool like, if it's not required, like, elective something, like, I think
Yeah.
that would have been super, like, enriching to learn, like, more of the business of design because I think it was mostly about, making yourself
Design. Yeah.
proficient in, using the programs and, learning the lingo of it all, but, and, using the grid, but it's just like, but can you drop an invoice and quote a project? Like,
Mhm.
no. So, and, since then, so many people I've learned from, and I've got like so many books and on my own bookshelf that have since, filled that gap. But that
Yeah.
would have been super duper cool
Mm.
in my undergrad years. Yeah.
Yeah. So think about this for a minute. If
Mhm.
you were to design a freelancer 101 course, what three things is a must that you have to include?
Three things.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, pricing is definitely going to be one of them.
Mhm.
I would say outreach would be
Mm,
another one. Um, and then maybe something maybe more like, mindset based or
mm,
something, like, about, like, being afraid or freaking out because
mhm.
I guess, at least for me, when I started, I was just like, "Is anyone else, like navigating this and just feeling kind of afraid or like
Yeah.
lost or like I'm going through the woods.
Mhm.
So I think those three things, especially because I think those three things I feel like have, especially pricing and outreach in particular,
Mhm.
have a lot of mystery to them. I think if when you're first starting out, because it's like, is there a magic number for this project? Like, is
Right.
there a right answer? Like, I was always so hung up on like, if I don't say the right number, like, then they'll know that I'm not really like super
Yeah.
experienced or something, or like I was just like, they're gonna
Yeah.
catch me in a lie or something. But so it's just like you can make informed decisions and
Mhm.
like make educated decisions. It's not like you're wrong or this is right kind of thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would say those 3 things.
Okay, that's good. I'm just curious because it seems like throughout these conversations I'm having and talking to these like outstanding people, it's just like I feel like I've heard that a lot. Like if we were taught these tools, it probably wouldn't have been such an hard journey of like these big mistakes because it's like you said, if you would have had a course on copywriting and licensing, you probably would have been like, oh, come out the gate with it instead of being like,
Mhm.
all right, I'm in year two. I need to make some more money.
No, it's so true, and I'm
Yeah.
so grateful to other freelancers and other
Yeah.
artists who have shared their platforms and, shared this information for free.
Uh-huh.
Like, because like, people say, "I went to YouTube University," but, like, it's true.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
That's how I figured out how to do my coloring book, YouTube University.
See?
And I
There
was
you
like,
go.
check this out.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So as we continue on this journey, just out of curiosity, what does success look like for you beyond just these business wins?
Ooh, that's a really great question, and I feel like my cop out answer is however I define success because, who can really
Yeah.
define success for another person or like, I feel like sometimes success looks like sending the hard email, you
Mhm.
know? Um, I feel like sometimes it's maybe trying something that's just completely off base for whatever it is that you're
Yeah.
already doing. I think maybe daring to be a little bit more adventurous or
Mhm.
something with your business or just, just trying something new, daring to redefine yourself maybe. I think I'm sort of in this weird space because I'm like past 4-year mark. So like
Mhm.
in my mind, at least in the American system, I guess of schooling, it's like 4 years of undergrad or whatever. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
should be graduating to
Yeah.
something, right? Like I feel like I'm waiting for something bigger or something to happen. Like I don't want to say existential or something, but
Right.
like, just something maybe to help me figure some grander answer or something,
Mhm.
but, maybe I'm just getting too woo woo about it.
I know as designers and creators, we're always like, okay, I've been doing this for this long. What's next? That what's next is always kind of in that it's kind of sits in the back of your head type thing
Mhm.
because I feel like a lot of people ask us like, "Oh, you've been doing this for this long. So what's next?" And it's like, "Let me get back to you on that."
Yeah, I feel like such a daunting question because it's just like,
Mhm.
I don't know, but I have a very hard time, and I don't know if you also feel this way sometimes of, like, just being present,
Yeah.
so and just
Oh yeah.
enjoying the moment. It's just
Oh
like
yeah.
you've been at this for 4 years and look at all the amazing things that you've
Right.
accomplished, and I feel like a lot of it, I just sort of tick off as boxes instead of really sitting and enjoying, like, the gravity of what I've accomplished already,
100%.
and I feel like I still need to work on that because it's just like because I am that what's next person, like, "Okay, I did this, now it's gotta be bigger and it's gotta be whatever," and it's just
Yeah.
like, it's cool.
I think it's just the stupid rat race that we've been put in since birth, where it's like you gotta achieve more, you gotta shoot for the highest star, you gotta keep going. And I
Yeah.
think that kind of can kill creativity, but I think exactly what you said is practicing being present. Like sometimes it's even like even with my own stuff, when I put out those coloring books, I was like, okay, what's next? And then like my mom was like, do you know what you just did? Like you've never like take a
Yeah.
minute, chill, like, think about what you just did. And I was like, "Oh, yeah." Yeah, I did do that. I did do that. So yeah, I am here with you on that. I totally agree with you
Yeah.
for on that statement. So what are the most grateful things? What are some of the most grateful things in your life that you are so grateful for right now?
Ooh, man.
Here comes that present. Here comes
It's
that
true.
coming to present,
It's
being
true.
present.
Honestly, the first thing I thought was just like four walls, four walls around me. But honestly, like super grateful to have just such an amazing support system
Mm,
in like my family and friends. I
mhm.
couldn't have, started my
That's dope.
business
That's dope.
without their support. Like
Mhm.
honestly, just like as soon as I was like, I'm quitting my job, no one was like, that's a stupid idea. Like everyone was like hyping me
Yeah,
up. Like
yeah, yeah,
she's like,
yeah.
of course you did. Of course you're gonna go out on your own. You're gonna kill it. And like that alone was just like amazing. So always
Mm,
grateful for support system because I know that maybe not necessarily everyone has that. Like even if it's just one person.
mhm.
And then I don't know. I'm just grateful that I still have the mind for creativity and the passion for it. That
Yeah.
it hasn't the spark hasn't dwindled or died
Mhm.
out, so to speak. Because sometimes,
Oh,
not
yeah.
feeling super creative and not feeling super like you can do the output of it all.
Yeah.
So I'm just grateful in this moment to be extremely creatively driven because I definitely towards like the end of last year I was full like slump in Q4 mode, like, okay,
Oh,
the year
wow.
is over and I really am like not feeling any kind of stimulus to
Mhm.
create even work for myself. So I'm really grateful for having a creative spark to sort of drive me forward at the moment and just
Mm.
creating really just fun stuff because I just want to do it.
Yeah. So where do you draw this inspiration from? Do you go outside? Do you go to museums? Do you go to, like, art shows? How do you, I would say, avoid the burnout and keep
Mhm.
work coming from a joyful and purposeful place?
That's a really great question. Definitely going outside is great
Mhm.
because touching grass, everyone needs to remember. We're not just strapped to our desks or
Right.
whatever, especially as I'm a person who works from home. So I
Yeah.
need to be outside from time to time, just like, or else I will not leave my house. So going on walks definitely always helps sort of refill the tank. And just always my eye, I guess, is just sort of drawn to visuals that are interesting to me. So I don't have to be anywhere particularly special to be
Uh-huh.
like, that looks like a cool package or that looks like a cool book cover. I'm always taking pictures of stuff whenever
Yeah.
I'm in a store or whatever. I organize all my stuff into albums on my phone so I could reference it later
Yeah.
for like inspiration for I don't know what, but maybe it'll come in handy one day kind of
Yeah.
thing. So definitely just remaining open to whatever presents itself to me that might
Yeah.
be a source of inspiration.
That's good because you'll notice in just conversation and through just like watch, I love to people watch. It's like I
Mhm.
really find myself recharging because it's just like, that's interesting. I wouldn't have done that. Oh, that's an interesting color combination. Those are different shoes. But it's just like what my
Yeah.
mind is doing is slowly just taking in like bits and pieces that I can like use as a reference later.
Hmm.
So I think doing that most definitely going out for walks, screenshots, pictures, hugging a tree every now and then. I think everybody
Yeah.
needs to do it.
No, yeah.
So, in a perfect world for you, what would your dream mural say if you could put it anywhere in New York?
Oh my
In your
goodness.
dream, yes, your dream. First, where would the location be? And what would your mural say?
Wow. Jeez Louise. I mean, it would probably no, it would probably say something about me, maybe not my name, but maybe something like, a black woman drew this or imagined this or
Yeah,
dreamt this or something like that. So
yeah.
it can invite, like, other people in maybe too,
Mhm.
but then it'll have, like, my handle on it or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So then everyone can know it was by me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then anywhere in New York City, um, I mean, Brooklyn has such a lovely mural culture. I
Mhm,
have my family, all my family is there still and grew up in Brooklyn, so I think that would be such an awesome borough. But if I could
mhm.
have it like anywhere,
Nope,
maybe.
they can't sit there and tell you, "Hey, Lana, you can't do it here. There's restrictions." They are saying, "Lana, go wherever you want."
I mean, I'd probably like it'd be cool if somehow like a mural could appear like in Prospect Park somewhere or
Mm,
something. Because that was always my favorite park to walk
mhm,
to when I lived in Brooklyn. It's so beautiful and there's always like cool stuff happening.
mhm.
So it's like I don't know if someone could like be jogging past my mural or doing something, that'd be cool.
That's dope. That's dope. Yeah. That's so I'm thinking what you just said, you're like, "A black woman created this. Do something crazy on it, that'd be dope." I think that'll be fire. Oh, yeah. Talk about clientele pop up. You're gonna be getting emails like crazy. Are you the lady that painted the mural? Can we, talk business?"
Yeah, right? That'd be
Right.
so cool.
Yeah. So where do you see yourself and AGF Design Studio in the next 5 years?
Ooh. Okay, so in 5 years, I'll be okay. So hopefully still around. I mean, I'm I'm not like out of love with what I'm doing.
Mhm,
So it'd be cool. I always thought I would grow into like some sort of studio space or, not just work out of my house or whatever. So um that would be cool if I could
mhm,
have like my own like artist studio or something like that.
mm.
So I could separate my home life and my work life a little bit.
Yeah.
That would be cool. I think it would be really cool to like be able to like, I don't know, take on like a junior designer or someone
Mm.
that like, help me with tasks because we'll be so busy and so
Yeah,
overwhelmed
yeah,
that we
yeah.
have no choice but to take someone else on and payroll them and pay them a really nice wage. That
Mm,
would be really great. Because I was so deeply enriched by my internship
mhm.
in college. So I would love to give someone that opportunity if they were interested. So that would be really cool. Oh,
That would be
now you got
cool.
me thinking. That's
Yeah. Just put it out there. You gotta manifest it because you don't
yeah.
know who's listening, who's
That's true.
hearing, what opportunity is gonna open the door, and you're gonna be like, "I did say this in 2024. Okay, we're here now.
It's
Let's
gonna
go."
happen.
Yes. So let's have a little bit of fun.
Okay.
Favorite typeface at this moment?
Oh. Okay, I'm really digging Degular by Ono Type Co.
Mhm.
Great stuff. Great stuff.
Typeface you hate at the moment.
Oh man, I have too much empathy for like typeface designers to say that I hate anything
Okay,
because
just don't give the name. Just don't give the name.
well, I mean, like, I wouldn't know who to say, like, designed it or whatever, but I feel like everyone, and even me, like, I would be like, "Oh, Comic Sans is the worst," but everyone's like, "Comic Sans is actually really good because it's easier on the eyes and it's easy for people to read if you have, like, dyslexia or whatever." So
Mhm.
it's like, everything has a purpose. Everything is just like, eh. So I can't say that I hate any typefaces. I don't use
Okay.
typefaces that I don't like, so
Okay. All right. Analog sketching or digital drawing?
oh, it's gotta be analog sketching.
100. Yes.
It's gotta be.
Dream collaboration.
Ooh.
Anybody, anyone, dead or alive. I'll even open it up more. Dead or
Oh my
alive.
goodness. Wait, like a dream, like, an artist to collaborate with my art?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
If I could go dig them up and be like, hey, bud, she wants to work with you. Here you go.
Yo, that's
Anybody.
crazy. Oh, man. Oh, I don't know. Frida. Let's get Frida out here. Yeah,
Ooh.
that'd be so cool.
That would be a nice collab right there. That would be very,
Yeah.
very cool to see her styling and your typeface and font. Oh yeah, like I love how you're just looking down like, oh, I might do something with that. Okay. Most underrated design tool.
Oh, underrated? Um, like program or like a tool within a program?
Let's do both. So
Okay.
program and tool within a program.
Okay. It's hard for me, it's hard to call fresco underrated, but maybe I'll just call it underrated because I guess a lot of people still aren't using it. So
Yeah.
maybe fresco for program. And then for tool, lasso tool,
Mm.
100%. Me and the lasso tool are like this because I'm like, need to fix something, lasso around it, move it wherever I need to go. So
100%. That's great. Well, Alana, this has just been such a fun conversation. Just got a couple more questions before we get up out of here. What advice would you give to someone listening who's ready to bet on themselves creatively?
oh wow. Um, I would say that you won't know if you don't try. So
Mhm,
dare yourself to try, even if it looks different than the way someone else has done it. So
mhm,
if betting on yourself looks like I'm going to go part time instead of full time, that's fine. So sort of define that for yourself, but
mhm,
try something.
mhm.
Try something that is a little bit out of your wheelhouse, that's a little bit scary, but that inches you closer towards that, whatever it is that you're seeking.
Most def. And finally, Alana, where can the people find you? Where can they see your tutorials? How can they get in contact with you?
Oh, yeah. So I'm all around the internet. You can pretty much find me at Alanna_flowers on Instagram. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on TikTok. And then on my YouTube channel, that's under my studio name. So AGF Design Studio. I post tutorials there. Come learn with me. I also have a Domestika course. I'll teach you how to use Adobe Fresco and do some hand lettering in there. So find my course on Domestika. And yeah.
Oh, well, you guys, thank you for listening to our podcast today. I am Justin Robinson. I am your host, but I'm so happy I had the talented Alana Flowers. And this is the Art School Graduate Podcast. We'll catch you guys later. Peace.
Thanks, Justin. Bye.